Judging by several indicators, the racial climate around the country or even the world has been getting worse for at least the past few years. But things went sharply downhill when President Trump went on the offensive, aiming directly at 5 members of Congress, all of them people of color, and by extension, a much larger constituency. The whole episode has become a learning opportunity of the worst kind, with lessons about race relations and the media. Our guest has been working in both fields for quite a number of years. We'd like to welcome the President and CEO of Colette Phillips Communications, Colette Phillips. Thank you much for being with us, Colette.
I am delighted to be here, Chris.
You have some perspective on this, and this outburst of the president on Twitter and the members of Congress. Put it in perspective. Is it really that bad?
It is that bad. When you start referring to Americans, both naturalized and native born, as people who should go back to where they came from, it is playing to the worst possible stereotype. And I have to believe that if the 4 congresswomen were white, that he would not say to them they should go back to where they came from. They're Americans. And if you think about it, America is a country that is made up of all immigrants. I am absolutely grateful to be here as an immigrant. I chose to be a naturalized citizen of America. So to hear the President of the United States say to a group of women who are like me, women of color, they should go back to where they came from, just rocked me to the core.
I mean, the first time I was thinking of, of course, my representative in Congress, Ayanna Pressley. If I had a guess, I would say her ancestry in this country goes a lot farther back than mine. So what is the president doing here?
Right. Well, I think what he's doing is stirring a dangerous and toxic brew mixed in with hate, with xenophobia, and his attack on Baltimore and Congressman Elijah Cummings. When you refer to a city and a group of people as infestations and rodents, you are dehumanizing them. You are devaluing them. And you are saying to people out there who are unstable, these are not human beings. When he said that not even Baltimore was not a place that any human being would want to be, then what are you implying? What are you implying about the people who live there? That they're not humans. That's exactly what he's saying.
In that attack on Elijah Cummings and Baltimore, I also saw language referring to government programs, and it seemed that the president was saying, these people, they take. That's all they do.
Exactly. And I was thinking this morning as I was contemplating about coming here to talk with you, that rural America, Appalachia, rural Mississippi and Alabama, Tallahassee, and other parts in states that are sort of in flux in the election. You see, the president is very clever and deliberative and intentional. He is picking out cities where the majority of people are people of color. And yet, people who live in rural America, who are mostly white, are very much in similar situations. They are struggling for survival.
And depending
on government benefits. But he will not pick on them. He will not say anything about them. And so you have to think, for people who try to justify and make excuses for the president, he is a racist. Let's call it for what it is. And we have to stop normalizing his behavior and said, oh, he's just plain talking. No, he is a racist who says racially charged, incendiary things to gin people up. And it's deliberate.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Colette Phillips from Colette Phillips Communications. Well, it occurred to me one other thing that the president might have been doing here, even though he denies he has a strategy, is that he's trying to define the whole Democratic Party as just preoccupied with anybody except white people. And I guess, isn't that a trap that people could fall into?
That is a trap that people can fall into. In other words, he's saying when you think of the Democratic Party, they only care about people who live in the urban and inner city. They only care about black and brown people. They don't care about you. And it's the same way when he tries to label them as socialist and communist. And it is a trap that people can fall into. But I hope that people will be smart enough to realize, the question that I ask of the people who voted for Donald Trump, who said, well, he was a businessman, and I think is your life better 3.5 years later than it was 3.5 years ago? Did the steel jobs come back? I don't know of anyone in their right mind who sit around and say, I want my son or daughter to become a coal miner. Coal miners' lifespan is about 50 years. They all die of black lungs. Who wants their family, their child, to grow up and become a coal miner? So for me, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It is absolutely a way of saying the Democratic Party is not for white people.
One thing I would give the president a lot of credit for is his ability to change a given topic. He was taking some flack for something before he unleashed the Twitter outburst. But what should the rest of us do? How do other people change the topic? Turn the tables on him, as it were?
Well, I think the media has a significant and important role to play. And we must never forget that Donald Trump is a master manipulator. He's a con artist. And what he does is when the heat gets hot, he decides, who should I pick on? What's going to be like, really get the press all upset and apoplectic? Let me throw some insults at some black people or some brown people or women. And if you notice what was happening when he went after the 4 women, the squad, Epstein, the billionaire pedophile, was in the news as a very good friend of Donald Trump. He was palling around with him.
Or at least a former good friend.
Well, and they had pictures of him, both of them watching women behave and commenting on women's body part, objectifying women. And also, it was just before Mueller was supposed to make his first appearance. And this was a deliberate diversion. Because if the press isn't talking about Epstein and they aren't talking about Mueller and collusion and, Russians' involvement in our election, then, you can get them off the topic. So the press has to be smart enough to not give life to his endless spin of madness. Don't get caught in the trap of his madness, but cover the stories that ought to be covered.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Colette Phillips.